The United Nations largest annual Women's Rights Forum opened this week at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Kurdish women in traditional clothing were also present through the corridors, representing a people with no official mission or seat at the UN, yet who still find their way here through the individual participation or alongside other countries' delegations. I am Sinan Tuncdemir from the Amargi. Let's dive in and hear directly from Kurdish women what brings them here and what they have to say. Well, Miss Nalin, thank you so much for making time today.
You're very welcome.
And I was walking in the UN corridors and I saw you with your Kurdish traditional dress. I was wondering, have you received any reactions regarding your outfit today?
Yes. So for us, it was very special to be here today because the Kurdish women aren't represented in the United Nations conferences, women conferences. So that was the first time for us to be representative today. We got a lot of looks, nice looks, a lot of compliments, but also questions. And that was very important for us that people came up to us and asked us, hey, where are you from? That made us clear that not a lot of people know the Kurdish identity or know a lot about Kurdistan. So it makes us very happy when people came up to us and asked us. So yes, a lot of women hugged us, gave a compliment, said, hey, where are you from? We said Kurdish, and they were like, Kurdish, Kurdistan, what's that? And then we were like, okay, we have to start from the bottom to explain what is actually Kurdish identity, what is Kurdistan. So we thought we would start somewhere else, but we saw that we had to start from the bottom talking about Kurdistan. And also a little incident happened when we were grabbing coffee. You remember, someone passed by and then said in Kurdish, he said, oh, nice Kurdish clothes. And I was so happy. And I turned around and it was Brahim Saleh, right?
Yes, Brahim Saleh, yes.
Brahim Saleh. And I didn't know him, honestly. And then you told me, and I was very, very proud in that moment.
He saw your outfit far away, and then he came up to you all the way. And
exactly. And you know what he also mentioned? He mentioned my braid because it's a symbolic for us Kurdish women braid. So he mentioned that as well. So that made me very, very proud. Yes.
And other than that, anything else would you like to share with us, in regard of your visit?
So we came here to the UN on the agenda talking about YPJ. The current negotiations in Syria about the dissolvement of YPJ. We can't accept that, and it was very important for us to talk about it today with other women. The YPJ is the women's unit in North and East Syria, based on self-defensive resilience and women's freedom. And the new Syrian transitional government is about to dissolve this unit, and that's a threat to us because we fought so hard for women's rights in the Middle East and in Rojava. So it was important for us to mention that the YPJ was fighting against ISIS, was protecting their communities and their rights. So we have to stay strong and mention that to a lot of people so people know what is going on in Rojava.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you too. Thanks for the invitation.
I was wondering, you guys ended up here at the UN. There are conferences happening through the International Women's Day. If I'm wrong, please correct me. You guys here, but did you guys come here through individually, or did you guys come here through a mission?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. First of all, I'm part of Genie, the Kurdish Women's Office for Peace. It is based in Berlin. It was also the first Kurdish information center built up by women outside of Kurdistan within the diaspora. And when the attacks of the Hetaşe and the jihadist militia in Rojava were intensified in January, we started to contact several people, such as the UN Women Germany. Afterwards, they kindly invited us to participate at the today's 70th UN Women's Conference in order to share our perspectives on Rojava, on Jinwar, because within the whole process of defending Rojava in the diaspora, we as Genie, the Kurdish Women's Office for Peace, tried to address and say, right now, the accomplishments of the women's revolution are in danger. And afterwards, and after having discussions with the UN Women in Germany, as I said, we came here and got invited.
And as a Kurdish woman, and you said you were guys involved in Germany, and did you guys explain to them, can women play a role when it comes to the peace and security, especially in the Middle East and, of course, for the Kurdish regions?
If we talk about UN women's negotiation processes, actually women, peace and security is a main agenda within the UN Women's Conference. But in the context of Kurdistan or within the context of the MENA region, we have to be honest and point out that there's a continuity of violence, especially continuity of gendered violence in all 4 parts of Kurdistan. So if we take a look on the UN Women's resolutions regarding peace processes, we see that there is an aim to enhance the participation of women within peace negotiations, to enhance the democratic participation of women within the societies. But then again, we see that, for example, all over the world, only less than 3% of all women were even able to sign a peace agreement. And if we again take a look, for example, on Bakur, Bashur, Rojava or Rojilat, this is quite important to highlight because within the Kurdish societies, the woman's role is quite clear. The woman's role within the history of the Kurdish history was always a really diplomatic role, a role which enhanced and supported peace process. And in that sense, I think it is a further aim of the UN Women's Conference and also an aim of women movements in general to clear up the woman's role within peace processes, because as a woman, especially as a woman in Kurdistan, there's always a continuity of war. There are different dimensions which we have to address. First of all, I'm a Kurdish woman from the diaspora. There are women in Kurdistan who were, for example, not able to attend to the conference, who were invited as well, but due to the current war, the airports are closed in Iraq, for example. That's one thing. On the other hand, it is more than important that indigenous people or oppressed people, such as the Kurdish folks, get a seat within the UN context as well, but not only UN, because every war, every negotiation process deserves or should highlight that indigenous people such as Kurdish folks also deserve a seat at the negotiation table.
Do you guys explain that to the UN people, for example?
So far, we were only able to reach out to UN Women Germany. Step by step, we hope so.
But very short, how much do you think they understand you guys?
So in order to be transparent again, it is a process. It is a process which is quite contradictory as well, because on one hand, this is a really bureaucratic process. It's a really symbolic process as well. To wear a Kurdish kaftan at the UN Women Conference is a symbolic case as well. But on the other hand, as I said, it's difficult to even get to a point in which you are able to speak and talk about those cases. But it's a process of convincement, and I think especially in the phase we are right now in Kurdistan and the Kurdish diaspora as well, it is more than important that Kurdish women are now the pioneers of each democratic or diplomatic process.
May I just jump to another, I mean the same thing, but I just want to go back to Rojava, and also in Syria in general. In your opinion, do you see the women are safe in Syria or in Rojava, especially after all these attacks we have seen a couple of weeks ago?
So if we take a look on Rojava or the overall process in Syria, we have to talk about the past violences made by the Heteshe, made by the ISIS. When I talk about ISIS, I'm talking about Daesh, which supported the genocide against the Ezgi women in 2014. So we are talking about a region in which women were targeted the first within the genocide of Ezidis, but also within other contexts. For example, only a few days ago, Yanar Mohammed was murdered in Iraq. Only a few weeks ago, Deniz Chia was murdered. And only a few years ago, Nagihan Akarsa was murdered. What I'm trying to say is feminicides against Kurdish women, not only Kurdish women, but feminicides against female leaders in post-war zones, is a political strategy. It was always a political strategy, but still, in the case of Rojava, it is important to still highlight the women's accomplishments, such as the co-chair system, such as Jinwar, as an autonomous women's village. So to conclude and to sum up, I would like to say this coexists. On one hand, we have tremendous cases of feminicides in Syria. On the other hand, there are still women who are trying to protect those women on a community-based level.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Ezgi, for making time today and joining.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And I see like there are Kurdish women at the UN, but they are here like more individual, or they come as like you through the German mission. And I was wondering, how does it feel for you, like coming here with the Kurdish identity, but through the German delegation or German mission? Can you just explain to us, like, how does it feel for you?
So I'm here as a German youth delegate today, and I'm on part of the German government delegation. But what politicized me at the forefront was my Kurdish identity and witnessing Kurdish women struggle for equality and their fight against the patriarchy. So that was the moment that politicized me. So I'm very proud and happy to be part of the German delegation. And also when looking to the negotiations, I'd say that Germany is one of the progressive states, and with outlook to the ongoing negotiations, there are a lot of negotiations going on about maintaining the status quo. And as a German youth delegate with Kurdish roots, I'm also witnessing what is at stake when it comes to women's rights internationally. And at this year's CSW, they're not only negotiating for new progress, but also to fight for already made achievements, but also maintaining the status quo at the end. And that just shows what is at stake. And not only for women all around the world, but also for Kurdish women who are at the, on the attack when it comes to democracy, or also democratic backsliding, and also with outlook to the geopolitical tensions going on right now. And
as a Kurdish woman, how do you think you can contribute to the like German mission, but you know, also as you said, there's a negotiation happens here, and can you contribute to this negotiation as a Kurdish woman?
So I'm working a lot with the ministry, and one of my priority themes are minoritized women. So what I'm trying to make visible are the struggles of women, not only internationally, but also of Kurdish women in the diaspora, as Germany hosts the biggest Kurdish diaspora in Europe. I'm also trying to make visible their struggles for equality in Germany, and but also beyond. And yes.
Yeah. When you say the largest diaspora in Germany, do you know any numbers that you can share with us?
I think it's around 1.3 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, totally fine. Yeah. And beside my question, would you like to share anything else with us?
Maybe that. Like especially for Kurdish women, it's at the end, women's rights are not just a policy issue. It is also an issue tied to democracy, peace, and conflict. And I'm happy to be here today and creating synergies with other women, and hoping that there won't be any regressions for women's rights worldwide. But let's see how the negotiations will end up at the end of the day.
May I ask you some opinion question, if that's okay? Mm-hmm. We know there was a war in Syria. The Syrian transitional government was attacking the Kurdish regions. And as a journalist, I witnessed that UN or UN women or other international community were kind of silent about that. Yeah. They didn't react like that much. Do you think it was just my observation, or as a woman, did you feel that, especially when the women were attacked?
No, that was also my impression. And that also shows how accountability only applies to certain states and to certain contexts. And it's very unfortunate when Kurdish women are sidelined when it comes to equality, and also with the recent weeks, with the attacks on Kurdish women. And I also see it as a responsibility of UN Women, but also of the UN itself as a whole, to address this issue and to come to justice and addressing this injustice. I mean, at the end, we're still a stateless group, so we don't have a permanent representation here at the United Nations. And of course, there are a lot of civil society organizations or diaspora groups here also today, but to advocate for Kurdish women's rights. But at the end, there are still institutional barriers to overcome. And as a stateless group, as a stateless woman, at the end, it's hard to overcome these barriers. And yeah.
Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you for having me.